Have you ever wondered why some of the most spiritually powerful people on earth, those who seem to move through life with an unexplainable grace, those who survive what should have broken them, those who hear what others can't, feel what others dare not, come from the darkest corners of human experience? Why does it seem that the ones who carry the heaviest burdens are also the ones entrusted with divine strength? Is it possible that God doesn't just allow suffering but chooses certain souls for it on purpose? These are not just philosophical questions. They are the foundation of a hidden truth that shakes the very core of how we understand power, pain, and purpose. I want you to go deep with me, not just watch but feel. Because this is not just a story. This is a revelation, a spiritual decoding of why God sends supernatural powers not to the perfect, not to the holy, not to the ones who live in the light, but to those who have walked through hell with their eyes open. The darkest chosen ones. You see, there's a divine paradox hidden in plain sight. We've been taught to chase the light, to seek perfection, to run from pain. But what if I told you that the light you're chasing is only visible because of the darkness that surrounds it? What if I told you that the soul God uses the most is the one that has been shattered the hardest? There's a reason for your suffering, a reason for your silence, a reason for that feeling deep inside that no one understands you. Because you were not meant to be understood by the crowd. You were chosen by something higher. When God selects someone as his darkest chosen, he doesn't start by blessing them. He starts by breaking them, crushing them, isolating them. That's the first sign, the stripping away. Everything they thought they needed gone. People they loved gone. Identity burned. They are left with nothing but silence. And in that silence, they start to hear something deeper. A whisper, a pull, an inner knowing that they are not like the others. Have you ever felt that? That you were born different, that your pain seems to run deeper, your emotions heavier, your thoughts more intense. That's not a disorder. That's a signal, a divine fingerprint on your soul. You're watching this not by accident, not out of curiosity. You're here because something inside you is already awakening. You've tasted the fire, and now you're being prepared for the power. The first supernatural ability God gives his darkest chosen ones is spiritual sight. Not the kind of sight that sees with eyes, but the kind that sees with soul. Have you ever looked at someone and instantly felt their energy? Have you ever walked into a room and felt the hidden grief, the silent tension, the unspoken truth? That's not a sensitivity. That's a gift, a divine antenna. The chosen ones see what others deny. They feel what others suppress. They know things they were never taught. But here's the twist. This sight doesn't come from light. It comes from walking through shadows. It comes from being betrayed so many times that you start to sense lies before they're even spoken. It comes from being abandoned so deeply that you can feel when someone's heart is about to leave you, even when their mouth says they love you. Pain sharpens perception. Suffering becomes the training ground for supernatural discernment. And yet, that's just the beginning. The second power is sacred endurance. Not just surviving, but enduring with purpose. Most people crumble under pressure, but the darkest chosen ones absorb it, transform it. They don't just survive trauma, they alchemize it into strength. Look at your life. Really look. Think about the things that should have destroyed you, the nights you thought you wouldn't make it, the betrayals that cut so deep you forgot how to breathe, the moments where hope was a distant memory. And yet, here you are, breathing, awake, watching this. This isn't coincidence. This is spiritual proof that you are already moving in a level of power you don't yet understand. God doesn't waste pain. Every scar is a code. Every loss is a lesson. Every breakdown is a doorway. And when you walk through enough of them, something happens. You stop asking, why me? And start whispering, use me. That's when the shift begins. That's when God starts to pour into you. But this pouring isn't gentle. It's violent. It's divine fire. Because the third supernatural power is the annihilation of ego. You cannot walk in supernatural authority while still clinging to false identity. So God tears it down. The titles, the masks, the addictions, the illusions. You are left raw, exposed, vulnerable. But in that vulnerability, something ancient awakens, a warrior, seer, a servant. The ego dies so the soul can rise. Let me ask you something. Who are you without your pain? Without your trauma? Without your story? Can you even imagine yourself without the chains? Most people can't, but the chosen ones must, because their purpose is not to carry pain, it's to transmute it into wisdom, into power, into healing for others. That's your next phase. Not just surviving your story, but becoming the healer for others still trapped in theirs. And yet, this calling is not glamorous. It's lonely. The fourth supernatural power is divine isolation. This is the part nobody talks about. God hides his chosen ones. He puts them in spiritual quarantine. Friends fall away. Opportunities dry up. The world grows silent. And in that silence, the darkest chosen ones are forged. Because in isolation, you learn to hear the voice of God without interference. You learn to trust your inner compass. You learn to walk alone so that when it's time to lead, you don't need the approval of the crowd. It's in isolation where the fifth gift is born, the voice of knowing. Not guessing, not hoping, but knowing. A deep, unshakable inner truth. You start to know things before they happen. You start to feel guided even when the path is invisible. You stop needing validation because you've been validated by the divine. And once you taste that, nothing external can shake you. But let me be clear. These powers are not rewards. They're responsibilities. You are being prepared to carry light into dark places. You are being trained to walk into rooms where others are drowning and be the anchor, the mirror, the prophet, the healer. Not because you're better, but because you've been broken. And through that breaking, you become open enough for God to move through you.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
I need you to understand something sacred. You are not broken. You are being built. Every tear, every mistake, every failure, it's not the end, it's the introduction. You are being introduced to who you really are. Not the version others tried to shape, but the version God had in mind when he allowed the pain. And if you're still doubting, if you're still wondering why your life has been so hard, why your path so lonely, let me ask you a question that might change everything. There comes a point in every chosen one's journey where the pain no longer feels random. The suffering, the patterns of loss, the weight of betrayal, it begins to form a shape, a message hidden beneath the chaos. That's when the mind starts to crack open, not from despair, but from something far deeper. Realization. You begin to see that you were never simply surviving hardship. You were passing through a furnace designed not to destroy you, but to refine you. And if you can surrender to the fire without running from it, something extraordinary happens. You begin to emerge with divine authority. This is the place where many turn back. Because divine authority doesn't come with applause. It comes with annihilation. You lose things that once defined you. You lose people who once validated you. You may even lose pieces of yourself that you thought you couldn't live without. And yet, in this sacred loss, you are being gifted something priceless. The sixth supernatural power, spiritual command over energy. This isn't fantasy. This is truth. When you've suffered enough to strip away your ego, your frequency changes. Your energy becomes potent. You start to walk into rooms and shift atmospheres. You speak and people feel something they can't explain. You think and doors begin to open. You pray and things move in the unseen. But let's be clear, this power doesn't come from rituals or religion. It comes from alignment. From living in such brutal honesty with yourself that your soul becomes magnetic to the divine. You stop pretending, you stop hiding, you stop begging, and in that raw authenticity you become a vessel God's voice doesn't echo in the loud, it whispers in the real. And when you tune into that frequency, you begin to command not with force, but with presence. Have you ever noticed how the most spiritually powerful people don't need to say much? They don't try to convince. Their silence speaks. Their energy teaches. That's not charisma. That's divine embodiment. That's what happens when you've been emptied out by suffering and filled back up with sacred truth. You no longer chase the light, you become it, quietly, unapologetically. But this power comes with something even more terrifying, the responsibility to be misunderstood. The seventh supernatural gift is divine rejection. Yes, it's a power, because once you truly tap into your calling, the world starts to resist you. Not because you're wrong, but because your light exposes their shadows. People will misread you. They'll walk away not because you're unworthy, but because your presence activates their discomfort. And here's the hardest truth. The more you align with God's reason for choosing you, the lonelier the road may become. But you must not mistake loneliness for abandonment. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. Positioned to carry wisdom that doesn't come from books. To speak truths that don't come from theory. To embody strength that doesn't come from muscle. You become a living paradox, soft but unbreakable, silent but thunderous, invisible but undeniable. So let me ask you something deeper, something that cuts through all the noise. Are you willing to lose everything fake to become everything real? Because if you are, then you are already walking in the footsteps of the darkest chosen. And what waits for you on the other side of this fire isn't just healing. It's activation. Activation of a life that doesn't just survive darkness but commands it. There's a sacred mystery that most people never notice. The ones with the deepest power, the kind that shifts destinies, heals generations, and changes the course of lives, rarely wear crowns. They rarely speak loudly. They rarely sit on stages or seek validation. In fact, they often go unnoticed, even misunderstood, living in the shadows of the world's noise. And yet these are the ones God has placed on a silent throne. A throne that doesn't need gold or recognition. A throne that governs realms most people can't even see. You might not realize it, but if you've ever felt unseen, if you've ever wondered why you're always the one carrying the weight, why you can feel people's pain without them saying a word, why you seem to attract broken souls who don't even know why they're drawn to you, then you may be one of them. One of the hidden, one of the veiled leaders. The ones God trains in secret so they can lead in spirit. This is the path of the divine outcast, the one who doesn't fit in because you weren't made to. You weren't built to blend in. Your energy is too ancient, too sharp, too heavy with cosmic memory. And so life has kept you on the sidelines, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because if the world gave you a microphone before your soul was ready, you might speak from wounds instead of wisdom. This hidden season, this obscurity, this constant feeling of not yet, it's not a delay. It's divine design. You're being trained, not by sermons or systems, but by life itself. Every heartbreak has become your textbook. Every betrayal, your initiation. Every night you cried alone became a classroom where God whispered things into your spirit that no one else could hear. And that whisper, that divine instruction, is what separates the called from the chosen. The world is full of people chasing platforms, but God is raising a generation of individuals who don't want to be seen, only used. And those are the ones He trusts with true power. But this power operates differently. It doesn't scream. It doesn't push. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't need to. Because when you walk in divine authority, doors don't open because you knock, they open because your presence announces you. When you've gone through the fire and stayed faithful, when you've been broken and still chose love, when you've been rejected and still chose truth, something sacred happens. Your energy becomes permission for others to heal. Your silence becomes a sermon. Your life becomes the message. And yet, this throne is heavy. Because being spiritually awake in a sleeping world is exhausting. You'll see things others deny. You'll feel things they suppress. You'll carry burdens that aren't yours, simply because you can. And sometimes you'll ask, why me? Why do I always feel so much? Why do people come to me with their pain? Why do I always have to be the strong one? But here's the answer you've been waiting for, because you've been chosen to be a spiritual architect, someone who builds temples in people's hearts, not with bricks, but with presence. Someone who doesn't need to preach to transform because your energy is the sermon. Someone who knows how to walk into the middle of someone's storm and bring peace, not by words, but by being. So let me ask you something sacred. What if the reason you've been hidden is because God is about to reveal you at the exact moment the world needs your kind of light? And when that moment comes, you won't need to shout. You won't need to prove. You'll just need to be. Because by then you'll know, the ones who sit on the silent thrones were never seeking power. They were becoming it. By now, something inside you has begun to stir. Not the surface-level inspiration that fades after a few hours, but a deeper remembering. A sacred recognition. Because the truth is, you were never meant to live an ordinary life. You were never meant to simply exist, to blend, to be one more voice in the crowd. You were meant to embody something ancient, something eternal, something that has been waiting for you to awaken. That something is not outside of you. It's been buried deep within you this whole time. You are not here to search for power. You are here to become it. The final truth, the one most never reaches, this: God doesn't give power to his darkest chosen ones to elevate them above others. He gives it to integrate heaven into earth, through them. You are not just a soul having a human experience. You are a divine instrument, tuned by pain, refined by isolation, and awakened by truth. The supernatural powers you carry are not for show. They are for service. They are not meant to make you famous. They are meant to make you faithful to a purpose so much bigger than yourself. But here's where many fail. They awaken to their gifts, but they don't anchor them in humility. They start to believe the power is theirs, when in fact they are merely vessels. And when the ego reattaches, the gifts become corrupted. That's why the darkest chosen ones are continually tested. Not just in the beginning, but throughout their journey. Every level of spiritual power comes with a new level of personal purification. You will be asked to let go again and again. You will be asked to surrender, not just once, but constantly. Because the more power you carry, the more responsibility you hold. That's why your life has been so intense. That's why people have misunderstood you. That's why you've had to walk alone so often. You are being forged, not just for your sake, but for the sake of the people who will be transformed through your presence. You are not being filled for you. You are being poured into so that you can pour out. And the moment you embrace that, truly embrace it without resentment, without ego, without fear, you step fully into your calling. At that point, you don't need to chase anything. You don't chase love or recognition or opportunity. These things begin to gravitate toward you. Not because you manipulated your way there, but because you aligned your energy with heaven's frequency. You become a mirror, a walking portal, a living channel. Wherever you go, you carry the kingdom. You carry the memory of who we are, all meant to be. And so, I ask you now, what will you do with this power? Will you hide it, afraid of being too much? Will you dilute it, hoping to stay comfortable? Or will you rise fully, deeply, unapologetically into the sacred chaos of your calling? Because this is the final test. Can you become what you are searching for? Can you stop waiting for someone to heal you and become the healer? Can you stop craving permission and realize you are the permission? Can you stop asking for signs and finally accept that your life is the sign? You are not watching this by accident. You are being remembered by the divine. You are being summoned. And this is not the end of the video, it's the beginning of the real work, the quiet work, the sacred work, the work of becoming. So walk forward now, not with fear, but with knowing. You are one of the darkest chosen ones, and the world has been waiting for your light.